Hello friends and welcome back to the next stage in my tournament. Today we are playing for a top 8 spot in Europe. Currently I'm between rank 9 and 12. If I win this match, which I'm playing against Spirit, I will advance on to the round of 8, where I will be facing either Hero Marine or E-Laser. But before we get there, first we need to dispose of Spirit. And the first map is Roodhuset Station. This is one of the maps that usually gets vetoed. But rather than vetoing Roodhuset Station, Spirit vetoed Equilibrium. I wasn't completely prepared for this, and as the vetoes were done about an hour in advance, I had to make a decision whether I played a recycled build, so a build that I'd played before, or if I would try something new. I spoke with some of my Terran friends and some of my Protoss friends, and we decided that the best thing to do was to recycle the build, because A, we believe that the build is very good, and B, we believed as well that Spirit, rather than going for an aggressive counter, would go for an economical counter or a straight up proxy in front of my base. So the plan of action here was to scout around my main base. What I'm playing here is a Nexus first, an extremely greedy and risky build. I scout around my main base for any potential close by proxies, a 2-rex, a 3-rex, a 4-rex, a Marauder all in, whatever you have. And then I don't go for an actual committed scout. This is the plan. Based on what we believed Spirit would do. So we thought that Spirit was going to go for some type of CC first into triple CC, as a lot of the time when Spirit can counter something with greed, he will do that. He likes having a lot of money. If he can skip a scout, he'll do it. If he can get a third CC in a way, he will do it. So we decided to just go for the Nexus first. Now the goal with this Nexus first build is that you full wall. That means a Reaper or a Marine or any unit that the Terran builds cannot get in. The first threat that becomes available for the Terran with any standard opener is going to be around 330, okay, let's say 345 or so. That's a realistic timing for an initial threat to hit your base. And by that time, I will have 1 or 2 Phoenixes. I'm going to have a sentry ready, third base on the way as well as a battery. So the plan is to get a sentry out, scout with the hallucination to figure out what my opponent is doing, get Phoenixes out for any type of air threat. If my opponent does a frontal push, I can get Void Rays out. I have insane eco, I have air control, and from there on out, I control pretty much the entire game. And the beauty of this is that I can take 3 bases while I'm completely walled off from the rest of the world. So you see I'm mining the patches that are on my third base, so I'm sending my worker over there. My battery is a little bit early, but that's not much of an issue because I'm just floating money otherwise. I'm getting my pylon in my main base as well. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself altogether. Life is good. There's no type of late proxy Marauder all in that I see happening here. I'm really not seeing much of anything, to be honest. And I'm happy with that. The less I see in the first 4 minutes, the happier I'm going to become. Because, well, let's face it, if 5 Marauders were to show up right now, I'd probably be pretty freaking dead. Because all I have is a sentry and a battery. And that isn't going to be enough against a significant force. So I scout across the map with my hallucination. And as it's across the map, I want to scout for a couple of things. I want to see if there's a factory. I want to see what's kicking off. And at the same time, I'm like, wait a second, what is this? A mine in my natural? That's real weird. And I'm a little bit late to noticing the mine hits. I lose a bunch of workers, and I notice that there's an armory as well. And this is the one thing that my build really isn't prepared for, as I simply do not possess any detection whatsoever. This mine survives as well, which is, well, double annoying, really. I now realize that my opponent most likely has proxied a barracks with a factory right next to it, build an armory. Now, I don't want to say this is pretty much a hard or a blind counter to my build, but it is pretty much a hard/blind counter to my build. There's really nothing I can do as I have no damage output whatsoever. Like, even if I had detection, it would take years for me to clear the mines, and I just can't do it. Here I lose my Oracle as well to this mine, and at this point, honestly, the game is pretty much over. I can leave right now because mines are going to keep coming in. I don't have any production whatsoever. My worker count is about as bad as my opponent's, which my opponent has a really poor worker count, but mine is just as bad, and I can't even clear all the mines that are being built. So I tap out, lose the first game in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Very sad turn of events. But before we get to the next game, I want to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, as that is Exter. I was first sponsored by Exter a little over a year ago and have actively been using their products ever since. I recently switched from my black carbon wallet into this sleek looking silver bad boy, and the cachets have never looked at me with more envy when I snatch this bad boy out of my pocket and pull out my card with an ease never witnessed before. This wallet is not only beautiful and easy to use, but it currently also has a 55% discount, just like all other Exter wallets. Follow the link in the description or the pinned comment and use code Harstem, all caps, at checkout. So once again, for 55% off, code Harstem, all caps, in checkout. Enjoy the rest of the video. And although it sucked to lose the first game like this, at the same time, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't feel like you got outplayed. You didn't throw a massive lead out of the window. You just made a mistake in preparation. And I did do my research. As mentioned, I spoke to a lot of people after we did the map vetos or during the map vetos. And I think it was a well-informed decision. And sometimes you have a well-informed decision and you gamble, and then the gamble doesn't quite work out. I'm not entirely sure how fair it is then to say in hindsight, oh, I shouldn't have done this. Because I thought about it, and I think if I were to be put in the same situation, well, maybe now with the new info, I would make a different decision. But with the information available to us, like most people were like, okay, we're expecting a greedy response coming out of Spirit. So the main thing that we kind of had him pinned on was that in the past, he's beaten me with battlecruiser styles in the late game. And Radhuset Station is a perfect map for BCs because there's quite a few spots that are difficult to reach for Stalkers, for example. BCs can have an easy time, especially if you have the watchtowers flying in at weird angles. So we figured what he would do is open up with a quick triple CC, maybe with a factory, and then try to get tanks out fast forward base and a rapid transition into battlecruisers, as it's impossible to kill someone on 4 bases on that map. And of 8 gases, you can play a very decent battlecruiser game. So this is kind of what we had expected. It didn't work out like that. And then to say, oh, that's so stupid. Of course, you played this build against Kier a week ago. He was going to prepare for it. And I knew he was going to prepare for it. I just thought that his preparation would look a little bit different than the particular build that he did this time. Because, well, yeah, like I said, of previous reasons. So maybe a little bit naive in that way. But I don't know. I think the reasoning was somewhat sound, and we can debate about it. But most other high-level players seem to agree with me. Spoke to 3-4 guys, and they were like, yeah, this sounds like a good plan. You know, we weighed the options. Because I also had other things that were more safe that I could have played, right? Or I could have just scouted even with this build. Maybe I should have. Oh, well. It is what it is. Second game here, I decided to go for a no-scout once more, as I'm opening up with a 19 Nexus, 19 core. This is quite a greedy build, but it still has a fast adept. Fast enough that you can scout with it. It pops at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. And you can just send it across the map. You get fast stack with it, and you have better eco than you usually would have. If a Reaper shows up right now, that's completely fine. You have the adept basically in time. It's 2 seconds too late to completely deny a scout in towards your main, but I knew that Spirit doesn't like building Reapers very much. He is someone that loves opening up with Marine into Factory or with Marine into Reactor. So that is pretty much what I'm anticipating here. And my goal was to play a 3-gate Blink build that hits a little bit faster than most 3-gate Blink builds. So generally a 3-gate Blink build will hit at about 5 minutes and 10 seconds or 5 minutes, between 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 10 seconds with about 10 Stalkers. My build is created so that you can hit at 4 minutes and about 50-ish seconds. You blink into the main base. You cut a couple of workers, but because I didn't scout in the early game, the eco is actually very similar to a standard one. So I take some risk early on to make sure that I hit much harder later on. And that was pretty much my goal going into this series in general, is that Spirit doesn't tend to take a whole lot of risk in the first 3 minutes, but then he takes a lot of risk between like 340 and the 5 minute mark. And there's a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities for me to get ahead in that area of the game. And as I felt pretty comfortable going in the super late game against him, as long as I could survive the early stages of the mid game, or well, just the entire mid game, I feel pretty comfortable going up against him. That was my setup for this series in general. It's like, hey, either win very early on and make sure that you're good for a mid game, because I believe he is significantly better than I am in the mid game, or just drag it out into a really long late game and see if you can take it there and then perhaps win the game. Because like I said, I felt pretty comfortable there. Now, I saw that he went for a Marine into Reactor build order here based on his Marine count. He had 5 Marines at the 3-minute mark. That can only be Marine into Reactor. That means that the first factory drop possibility is going to be about 4 minutes and 35 seconds on this particular map. I have good pylon spread. I'll have 3 Stalkers at home. So that means I'm going to be hitting with 7 Stalkers over here rather than the 10 that I usually go with. And indeed, I'm going to be hitting at about 4 minutes and 50 seconds. He sends a drop into my main base and I see only a single mine. That saddens me a bit. I much rather would have seen 2 mines because that would have meant that his tanks would be delayed. I'm a little bit slow with blinking in because I was busy dealing with it. So I end up blinking in 4 minutes and 58 seconds. But I do get some decent damage right off the bat. You see he's not in position quite yet with anything. There are 2 tanks. Like I said, if this was a 2-mine build, there would have only been a single tank. He also didn't open up with a Hellion. Usually people always go Hellion into mine. So this is really an anti 3-gate or 4-gate blink build because he's skipping a lot of scouting here and the potential for damage just to make sure that he has a lot of tanks. Here I see that he has a Cloak Banshee on the way, and this is another thing that I noticed in my preparation for Spirit is that he was very keen on building Banshees in general with Cloak, very often opening up a single Hellion into Cloak Banshee. Here I see 2 bunkers and 2 tanks. At the same time, I'm not seeing a whole lot over here. I figured there should be a tank over there, but that does mean that this mineral line is pretty much, well, empty right at this moment. My macro behind it isn't entirely great, but I'm dealing enough damage. My eco is very solid as well. I'm trying to trade out against a couple of these Marines, seeing if I can pick off 3-4 Marines, and I definitely can. He's forced into a lot of tanks, which means that, well, really it means 2 things. As I'm trying to catch a breath from speaking so fast. It means 2 things. One, he's going to go for it can mean 2 things. There we go. It's either going to be a very committed tank push, which is unlikely, or he's going to play a much more defensive style over here with tanks. And I need to figure out which one it is going to be. I'm not doing a brilliant job, honestly, of figuring out what it is going to be. I don't really have any vision of a potential 3rd CC that's going up in his main base, which would have been very smart. Especially in retrospect, that's easy to say. It's like, hey, these are really the 2 options and you need to figure out what it is. I'm trading against some of these Marines. I'm trying to figure out what he's doing as I keep my Stalkers close by as well. I want to get a pylon spread up too. And I think right now I'm playing a little bit too afraid in a way to expand to a fast fort base. In practice, I often would take a fort base much quicker than now, but I'm pretty afraid actually of something of like an SCV pool. I'm not entirely sure if I should be, and as a result I'm taking a very late fort. I'm taking a fort gas first, I'm building that robo bay. All of these moves are obviously fine, but I think getting an eco lead against Terran, I think Protoss almost always should be up a base against Terran. They always said it about Zerg, but I actually believe it's kind of true for Protoss as well. And if you watch some of the best Protoss players in the world, Hero and Max Packs, especially Max Packs, you'll often notice that one of the ways that they win games is just by having an extra base. It allows them to throw away zealots at a much higher pace and just have better, especially mineral income being very important. Here I do scout that my opponent is building a 3rd base. At least I see it on the minimap. I do not recall noticing this as I was in the game, as I was so busy trying to catch these Banshees. And here I thought I had them, but they still were cloaked and my observer was a little bit too slow. Very unfortunate for me, of course, but it is the way of the world. Yeah, as I said, I don't really realize here that his 3rd base is already up. I think my 4th base is way too late, and it's kind of pathetic. I really could have built this fort base about 70 seconds ago. This base should have been done at this point. It really should have been. And if your fort base is done as your opponent's 3rd base, lands, that is a very good sign. And here, I think I have dreams of trying to attack into this. I'm not entirely sure if this is the correct call. If I had wanted to make an attack into this, I think rather than going for Colossus, I should have thrown down a Templar Archives. If I can move into this with like 2 added Archons, and I come in with a Zealot flank or something of the sort, I believe that this could be a viable push in a way, It's like, why not? Yeah, that definitely could be viable. Here I send in a prism, a fake prism, into my opponent's main base. I hope that a very common move that Terrans make is that they just F2 all of their units into their main and leave their tanks behind with like 2 medevacs or something like that. And as he is harassing with my Banshees, this actually works out very well for him because he isn't paying attention to his main. So usually you kind of expect your opponent to instantly respond to a big threat moving into the main, but he doesn't. So I'm like, well, this sucks. Here's my great trick. And I don't think he noticed until very late. So now I kind of just do like, all right, I want to do something at least. My work account isn't as great as I would have liked it to be. I can't really kill this. I can't walk into it. My eco isn't as great as I would like. Yeah, it freaking sucks. I build a prism. I see that there's a Viking there. I'm like, well, perhaps this is not the ideal spot here for a prism then. That's a slow warp in pylon, so that Banshee is going to be capable of dealing a little bit more damage than I would have wanted. My map vision on the far left and the far right isn't quite brilliant either, as I add in another pylon. And well, this Stalker is going to show up right now and deal with that Banshee. I start healing this pylon so it doesn't end up dying. It would have been very, very unfortunate. Still have a large army, but you see that the quality of my army is kind of limited right now. So I'm adding in the Dark Shrine. I'm like, okay, I want to go into a late game at this moment. I probably should throw down a 5th base. Once again, just real slow to expanding. I'm already oversaturated on my fort right now. You always want to keep, stay up in bases against the Terran, especially when you have map control, which I completely have right now. There's no real reason for me not to have full vision on the map, not to take a 5th base, not to go up to like 10, 12, 13, 14 gateways, however many you can. I still see some major dark spots here in my vision as I throw down a 3rd robotics facility. I definitely need a couple more gases. Yeah, there we go. That's a good job, Kevin. Because I want observers, I want disruptors, I want immortals. I want basically everything over here. As I spot this dropout, I'm like, ooh, that's nice. That's sweet. I can send my stalkers over there. I don't want to use your whole army. And now at the same time, I see a move out. But you see, I had a bit of a dark spot right in front of his natural ramp. And as a result, I see this move out very late. Going to be caught out of position. Well, not just a little bit, but quite a bit. And he's moving in with not just... I thought this was just going to be his main army. But they actually also took his tanks here. And this is a very dedicated 1-1 ghost tank timing push. With 4 ghosts, I'm like, wait, this is a way larger army than I had expected. And this is actually pretty scary for me all of a sudden. He is still on 3 bases. My counterattack didn't quite work out. I'm like, okay, I need to take out these tanks somehow. So I move forward here. I still have the super battery available. I think at this point, I probably should give up the 4th base. And I just move over to the 5th. I send all my zealots across the map for a counterattack. And then I just hold my own 3rd base. I think this is a very realistic thing that I can do here. But I don't. I decide, you know what? Even without Guardian Shield, I can just fight into this. And that, my dear friends, is not quite correct, as you will figure out right now. And this, I think, is a very big mistake by me. This really was a very big mistake. I'm not quite sure why I did this, but I did. And this game felt much, much worse to lose like this, because I actually was in a really good spot off the early game, exactly how I wanted it to. I was ready to go into a stable late game, but then just before we reach the late game, I completely throw it out of the window. And as you can see, I feel pretty stupid about this one. But I also knew at the same time that... yeah, here I actually watched the replay. I'm like, it's 1-1 upgrades, it's absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's very sad. Actually, very sad. I really believe I should have taken this game. And I mean, I should have taken this game just out of position. Yeah, miss it by like a freaking... like 10 seconds. If he hits 10 seconds later, I see everything. I'm in position. I could have recalled as well towards the bottom left side, but I did none of these things. And as a result, I'm down 0-2 in a best of 5. And I've almost done it against Rainer before a comeback. So I still believe, especially with the build that I have planned. So as I mentioned before, the main way that Spirit likes to play is by opening up with Marine into Factory or Marine into Reactor with a no scout most of the time. So I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go for a little bit of a cheesy play. And I practiced this one an absolute crap ton. I think I played over... I don't think I'm over-exaggerating. I think I played over 100 games of Proxy Gate over the past 3-4 days. And pretty much every variation has been tested, all right? And the particular variation that I set up on as the build that I want to play is a Proxy Gate that got played against me when I was playing Terran by a player called UED Soldier, 5.7k Protoss player or so. And it looked pretty powerful. It includes a Zealot as well as a Proxy Robotics facility. And I tested many different locations of the gate. This one seemed to be the best one. It is fairly likely to get scouted if your opponent opens up with a Marine. But in the case that your opponent goes for any type of SCV scout or an early eBay block, it is unlikely that you're going to get figured out. On top of that, because you're moving towards the right side of the map, it also allows you to scout for any potential proxy barrack situations. So you can basically straight up win the game if you find your opponent's proxy racks. Now, Spirit here opened up with his best possible build order versus what I was doing. Spirit plays eBay block in about 15% of his games. Maybe a little bit less even, at between 10 and 15% from all the matches that I watched. And this was the one build where I wasn't favored to win with this particular build. It's literally just a little bit unfortunate. I knew that he was capable of this build, and once again, I kind of went for a coin flip. I've never shown this particular build before. I never do any type of one-base all-ins against Terran in general, so I don't think this was his counter to my proxy one gate. Like, it was he was sure that I was going to play it at least once, because I really wasn't sure that I was going to play it even when I knew who my opponent was going to be. But yeah, this is very, very unfortunate for me. The goal basically for me is to go for, to kill my opponent as he's trying to defend his natural, or at least to not have a bunker when I arrive. But because this scout is so early and he sees everything, to be quite frank, I'm in a really, really crap spot right now. So I move up with my Stalker. I try to clear basically anything I can clear, and I want to transition into a robotics facility. I want to go for a prism attack over here. I really do want to go for like a 3-gate Stalker attack. But yeah, this start is absolutely awful. This is by far the worst case scenario. Like, there's nothing worse. Well, it could be worse if he scouted this robo here. Luckily, he doesn't. It's actually kind of a big deal. If he sees the robo there, I'm pretty much straight up dead. Now my plan is very simple. I'm very sad by this by this entire setup. I never knew that my face shows this many emotions when I play. I almost look like an actor sometimes. If you work for any of the big Hollywood companies, I'm always open for a job, guys. I do this stuff naturally, no need at all I don't need no training. I'm good like this natural. But yeah, it's a freaking crap situation for me, obviously. His bunker is perfectly built as well. His response is high tier. Like, this is the best response as well from what he's been doing. And now my goal is to try and make him believe that I'm expanding behind this, which I'm not. So I don't really want to, hardcore contain him, but also I don't want him to see my extra units. So I'm just showing the units that he's already seen. I'm like, okay, I just hope that he moves down the ramp and we can fight down the ramp, because I can't fight up the ramp. That is the one thing that is completely impossible, all right? I simply cannot fight up the ramp. So here I'm just scouting with my little adept. I'm pretending like I'm just there with a couple of units. Maybe I even should have showed the sentry. I was considering showing the sentry. I recall that in my mind. Like, if I show the sentry, he might believe that I'm really trying to contain him so that I have an expansion there. And the moment he scans me, if he does, then the game is completely over, right? So my entire plan is just reliant on him not scanning me. I could still expand at this point, but I think the highest percentage play here is basically praying for him to walk into the arms of death at this point. That is he's scouting, and I'm denying that. I have my secondary army a little bit further back, making sure he isn't scanning me. So every now and again I tap down towards my natural, move in towards my prism. I don't actually quite want to show this yet, I think. I think I just saw, I'm not sure if it's true, but I think I just saw that he scanned me in my natural, and I'm pretty sure he did just scan me. Like, you saw like the very last thing, the little line around it. So at this point I'm like, okay, well, this is it, and now I actually do need to expand. Like, it's the only thing I truly can do. Like, there's nothing else that I'm capable of doing, because he's just gonna sit here on one base forever. He's already getting stim, he's getting a starport, he has a bunch of tanks on the way. I'm like, okay, let me do whatever this is. And here my plan now is to basically contain him on 2 bases as I tech into a robo bay. So this honestly is a scenario that I hadn't quite played, but it was a scenario that I thought through in case they just completely, they turtle up on 1 base. I think the highest percentage play is going to be to do what I'm doing here. Robo Bay, hope for a lucky disruptor shot, and then just kind of take it from there. I think you want to get Blink behind it as well. The reason why you want to get Blink is in case they do any type of major drops, and maybe you can catch it. So yeah, that's really my entire plan. So he scouts me with a Reaper, which is actually a really smart play. I think he probably should have done that a bit faster. I actually really believe he should have done that a bit faster. It's my Immortal plus Zealots once again hit the main base. As a Viking now shows up, I'm like, what do I want to do about that? I'm not so sure yet. Just gonna recall everything back home. Doesn't have Stim, just has Combat Shield. My first Disruptor is on the way. And situation is bad, but it's not unplayable. Like, I'm really just... Let's say I'm about 3 big Disruptor shots away from winning this game, you know? If I hit... okay, maybe 2. Honestly, if I hit 1 big Disruptor shot on all of his Marines, I think I'm just in a really good spot. The problem here obviously being that hitting a big Disruptor shot on all of his Marines is going to be quite tricky. Also, if any drop passes by my main army, I'm freaking dead. So I'm trying to get these watchtowers right now. I'm like, well, where could he start dropping? I'm like, well, he'll probably go towards the far left side. There's a spot that is outside of tower range, which you can always drop past. So I was like, maybe I should send my stalkers back home. I was like, nah, actually, I need to catch a drop. I need a win. I don't just need to survive. I need a win and survive. So I decided to move my stalkers towards the left side and hope that he wasn't paying attention. And that he just flies into my stalkers and I accidentally, you know, get a kill or something. That really was my entire plan. I know it's not a brilliant plan, but I mean, I think it's the best that I can do in this situation, which is really just here's the feeling I had in this series, at least in game 1 and 3. It's like, well, I have crap tools here, and this is the best that I can do with the tools that I picked. You know, I know I picked those tools myself. It's not like they were given to me. You know, you need to hammer in some nails, and I'm like, well, how about we take this thing to, like, what do you call these things to use for the garden, to take the weed out? Use one of these. Like, well, that's a crap choice, Kevin. I'm just moving around. I know he's about to drop because he just scanned me. Sending my Zealot into the edge, and there indeed comes the double drop. And as I see it, I'm like, well, that sucks. Because if he gets to unload, he doesn't come from one area. It becomes really difficult. And him sniping that pylon actually is a big deal as well. My army here is tiny. I don't get another Disruptor shot. I have vision with the hallucinated Phoenix. My blink isn't quite done yet as I'm trying to get back together. And here, he's just way too spread out, and I can't hit anything. I don't even have enough purification of it. This army actually was surprisingly small. I was surprised by that. It was only 100 supply against 83, but yeah, I lose the game anyway. And that means that I'm out of the tournament. I got top 12. Well, I got ranked 9 to 12, 215 EPT points. Not a whole lot, but still, you know, being top 12 at anything in Europe is usually an okay thing. I really believed that my skills were better this time to reach higher. If before you would have asked me, hey, Kevin, are you happy with a top 12? I probably would have said no. My goal was kind of to get a top 8 in this tournament. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad, and I'm also not so happy with the games that I did end up losing. My series against Raynor was very good, but my series against Spirit was extremely bad. Just I think poor play. I mean, 2 strategies, a bit unlucky, but the game where my strategies all worked out, I also didn't manage to bring it home. So in the end, the better player won. I'm sorry that I didn't win. It is what it is. I know it's hard being a Harstem fan, guys. Trust me, I'm well aware. We don't win a whole lot. When we do, though, it's going to feel great. Trust me on that. Stay safe, stay strong, and buy extra wallets. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye.